Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us again for the second talk show tonight. We have a great stuff here on stage, and I will ask them to come out individually. First of all, James Burton. Ronnie Tatt is here. We have Glenn D. Harding. And last but not least, Jerry Schilling is here on stage. So, we will do it like last time. We have some questions from the fans out there. Thomas is here, and we will play with each other about the question and answering. My God, we have history here on stage. And what I want to ask you first is, we have a special cruise this year. This is our fourth talk show, actually. But this year is very special. We have Priscilla on board. What does it mean to you guys cruising with her the first time?
I think it's great. I think she should have came on all the others too. It's truly an honor to have Priscilla here with us, because we travel a lot, and Priscilla is in California and we're all over the world, and it's great that we could all be together at once to visit with Priscilla. And it's always an honor to be with her.
Is it a little bit like in the old days, Ronnie?
Yeah, it's nice to rekindle the friendship from the old days, because, as James said, we both have gone different directions. In only a couple of occasions have we even seen her, but we haven't had a chance to sit down and talk. So we're very grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that.
Glenn, you remember last evening?
I'm sorry?
No, Glenn, you remember last evening?
Oh yes, we had a great time last night. We stayed up quite late. It was like being in Las Vegas again. Only thing missing was the mountains with the sun coming up over there.
And Jerry, you are a little bit responsible that everything came together this time.
Yeah, I'm kind of relieved, because if it wasn't going so well, I'd probably be in trouble, you know. But I especially want to thank the fans. Priscilla wanted to come. Her motivation was twofold. She wanted to see the European fans and learn more about the fan clubs and the fans, and she wanted to hang out with her old friends, Glenn, Ronnie, and James, and so we did that last night, her old friends, including me, and it's just really, really going well, and she's having a great time. So thank you all for being so respectful and everything with her privacy, and she's trying to get with everybody as well, so it's going very well.
I'll ask you to tell me and us some stories. I don't want to talk this time about Elvis, not only talk about Elvis' generosity and everything about. No, not yet, James. I want to know Elvis as a person. And I want individual stories, please, from everybody. Elvis, did he ever got you mad? Do you remember a time during the band life with Elvis that he was mad about you, or you mad about him? Any time?
Actually, not that I know of. He was always great to be with, on stage or off stage. He was a funny guy. He liked to kid around, joke around a lot, and of course he was an incredible performer. Sometimes he would like to have fun on stage with us. He'd want to throw us a curve or something to, throw us off. But he never did throw us off, because we were always on top of him. You had to watch him every minute. but he was really a great guy to work with on stage and be with off stage.
No special story with you. What about you, Ronnie? Does any story come to
Oh,
your
I
mind?
only remember one time where he actually got upset. We were doing a rehearsal in Las Vegas, and we were on stage at the big showroom there, and he was trying to rehearse a new song to put in the show. And it wasn't going really well. Some problems with the orchestra, when to come in, and all of that. Joe Gercio stood right behind me, and we're talking back and forth. Pretty soon we're totally turned around, going, blah, 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 to each other, having a heated discussion. And Elvis, I could see out of the front of my eyes that he was getting ticked off. we weren't moving along with the song. And sure enough, he reached down and had a big folio of all his lyrics. He slammed it open and he walked off the stage and said, "You guys, let me know when you're ready to work." So we got the hint very quickly.
And you got ready very quickly. So, okay. Glenn, what about you? Any story?
I don't remember him ever being mad at me, or I'm sure I was never mad at him. And if there was a time, I'm sure it didn't last but 5 minutes or less. Once in a while he'd get irritated about something, but he had Charlie and Red West to kick around, and that worked out very well.
What about you, Jerry?
Oh God, he got mad at me so many times. Man. But since Priscilla's on board, I'll tell you the first time he really got mad at me. I had just moved into Graceland, 22 years old. I was so thrilled to be there, and I came upstairs to the kitchen. My room was down in the basement, and Priscilla came to get something out of the refrigerator, and her eyes were red, and I thought she had a bad cold, sniffles or something like that. And I said, "So are you okay?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I'm okay." I had no idea that her and Elvis were having this tremendous argument. And so she came down, and then she went back up, and the argument continued. Couples have arguments. And she said, "Well, at least Jerry Schilling cares." Oh my God. Elvis came downstairs. I don't need anybody taking care of my lady. And I was crushed. But being the sweet guy he was, he knew that I was innocent and I was crushed. And he finally gave me that little smile. It's cool. So that was the first time he really got mad at me.
And all the stories make him very human, I guess. So, other way around, James, the funniest story you remember about being with Elvis? The funniest story with Elvis. Does any story come to your mind?
Well, there's a lot of stories. One story was when Elvis called me to put the band together and everything. So we talked for a long time on the phone, and I kept telling Elvis I had to go because I had to go do a recording session. And so he just kept talking, just kind of ignored it. And finally I said, everything's great, Elvis. I'll call you, and we'll talk about putting the band together, no problem. But he just kept talking, said, I watched you on TV, watched you play guitar with Ricky Nelson on the Austin Harris show. And he just kept talking. Finally, I convinced him that I really had to go because I was late for work. And he said, "Okay, well, I'll call you later." And he hung up the phone. So that was one of the first times that we got together and talked about, just different things.
Ronnie, any funny story that comes to your mind? Funny. I give it over to Glenn.
A couple of funny things that happened. We tried to doing 2 shows a night, sometimes 3 shows on the weekends, and being there in Vegas for so many weeks, rehearsing. We tried really hard to keep our sanity, because doing that show in that town like that can really drive you nuts pretty soon, if you allow it to. So we would try to make jokes on the stage and so forth. One time we decided to get even with all the pranks he was playing with us. He would turn around and, Charlie would always give him glasses of water. And if he would just be in a real playful mood, he would just flip the water on whoever he decided needed to be gotten. And so he had just about gotten everybody in the band at one time or another. And we just said, this can't continue on. So we went out and we got water pistols. And at the appropriate time, right as he was going to turn around and throw the water on one of us, we all stood up where we were sitting down. Let him have it. He didn't have a good sense of humor when it came out.
With him it was a yuck a minute, we used to say, because he never stopped with the funny stuff. You guys remember that time he came on stage on Lamar's back? Remember that? And there was a time that he came on stage in a bed. Do you remember that one? Yeah. So it was endless. It never stopped. And he thought everything was funny. He was, he must have drank a lot, I guess.
Especially in the wintertime, we wouldn't see daylight for maybe 6 weeks because we go in a week early. By the time we stayed up late at night, everybody came up after the shows, closed the curtains before the sun came up, and we'd have breakfast about 5:30 in the evening, and it would still be dark. It'd be dark for the next day. So by the end of the engagement, we all didn't want to be around each other. And I don't care, how much you like people after a few weeks. And so we would kind of do a thing where the guys with Elvis, they would go out with their wife or their girlfriend, and, 1 or 2 of us would alternate and stay with Elvis, because he would like to stay for a week or so, and then start going to shows. He was a big fan of other people. So it was me and him up in the suite one night, and it was kind of boring. So I said, Elvis, you want to go downstairs and hit those tables? That was what we meant, go play blackjack. That's how we'd say it. Knowing he wasn't going to go, and he said, yeah. So Elvis and I go downstairs, not announced, no security, we go to the blackjack table, played 2 or 3 hands, and then some people started coming, security, the red rope came, and, so after a while I said, Elvis, I think we better start moving, because, he said, yeah. So there was a bar in the back next to the lounge. I think it was called, it had a special name, but I'm not going to say it now. Right next to the lounge, the Righteous Brothers were playing there. And Elvis wasn't a drinker. I really wasn't that much at that time. And so we went to this little bar, and the lounge, the Righteous Brothers were playing. People would come out. Norm Crosby came out. He bought me and Elvis a drink, and politely we drank it. Then Bill Medley came out with Darlene Love. They wanted to have, but it was a great night because people would come up, they would buy us a drink, and then they would go on and not just hang around. But then it was like 3 in the morning. I don't know how many drinks we had, and I was going to be the responsible party. So I said, Elvis, I think we better go. He said, you're right. So we go outside. We go up, I get us a cab, we get in the back of the cab, and I say, Hilton Hotel. He looks around, he says, you're at the Hilton.
Thank you very much. So let's see what the fans want to know. Thomas?
Yes, we have a couple of very interesting questions, and the first one comes from Nikki, and she comes from New Zealand, which is amazing, not such a long distance. She wants to know, can you guys tell us about the audition process to join the TCB band in 1969?
James, the audition process. Could you repeat it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please tell us about the audition process to join the TCB band in 1969.
Yeah? Do you have something to say about it? The audition process in 1969. Yeah.
Jake at RCA.
Yeah, we, when Elvis called, we asked me to put the band together. Well, we did. We had a set up an audition. Elvis said, well, I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and we'll come out, and I'd like to, we'll just have a sit down and play. And anyway, when he came out, we had an audition, Jerry Schilling on bass, and Larry Mahoverack on keyboard. And Larry had this great drummer from Dallas, Texas. He said wanted to come out, and we had different musicians actually set up the audition. But when Larry Mahoverack, Jerry Schilling, and he had this guy Ronnie Tutt from Dallas, and I said, "We'll call Ronnie. Let's get him out for the rehearsal." And so we all got together and played, and Elvis said, "Fantastic." He loved everybody, and he said that this is great for me. So what do you think? And I said, "This is a band I want." And so that's what happened. We just got together and played, and the first show was in Las Vegas at the International Hotel, which is now the Hilton.
So glad you hadn't been in the first round, because it was Larry Mahoverack. When did you join?
I came along right after 6 months later when they went back to Las Vegas in February of 1970. But I did go audition for Elvis. Actually, James had called me when they first went, the first time. James had called me to come along, but I just couldn't do it. I had some other things, other commitments I had to deal with, and I couldn't cancel them. But I was happy that Larry Mahoverack is a very talented arranger and great piano player, and he just wanted to be in Los Angeles. He didn't want to go to Las Vegas or travel on the road at all. So he exited, and James called me again, and I was glad he did, because I was kind of getting away from the piano. I was arranging music all the time, and I wanted to get back to playing piano, because that's about the easiest thing I ever fell into. And I did go audition for Elvis. It seemed like we went out to the movie studio at Culver City.
MGM.
MGM. And I went in there, and we shook hands and talked a minute, and sat down at the piano and zipped through a few of his old songs. I knew everything he had ever done. I listened to the radio too when I was a kid, and we didn't spend but about 5 minutes with that, and he said, "Well, man, I really like how you play." He said, "Let's step out here in the hallway and make a deal." I said, "Okay." There were some other people in the room. So anyway, we stepped out in the hallway, and he just said, "What does it take?" And I told him in one short sentence, and we shook hands, and it was a deal that lasted for years.
Remember the audition?
Well, previous to all of that going on, I had met Larry Mahoverack in Memphis. We were on staff at a recording studio down there, and we had both decided that we wanted to move west. Both wanted to go to Los Angeles to record and do whatever, because it was really the land of milk and honey back then. It was the epitome of everything. So anyway, he said, "I've been contacted," at one point he came up to me and said, "I've been contacted by Colonel Parker's office, Elvis's people, and he's going to open a hotel and do a live gig." and start a whole new band, a whole new thing. And he said, would you be interested if I recommend, put your name in the hat, so to speak? And I said, yeah, that'd be a great way. He said, yeah, because everyone in Hollywood is going to be coming from all over the country is going to be hearing Elvis. So it'd be a great way to introduce, yourself into the West Coast. So they contacted him, and I guess you guys had been rehearsing along, and it was a Friday afternoon late, and I got a call from Larry and said, he's got one more night of rehearsal, and he's still not happy with what they have, so can you get your drums and come out there? I mean, it's just that quick. So I said, I don't know, let me see if I can get an airplane and all of that. Sure enough, I did, and handled my drum set, went to Los Angeles, went to the studios, and I won't bore you with the long details, but I wasn't even sure I was going to get a chance to play because I had gotten there early, set the drums up, and as I'm sitting there waiting for everyone to come, this guy walks in, and he goes to the back, and he had a cymbal bag over his shoulder. So I figured, well, here's another drummer. And so I hear him talk to somebody in the back, and the guy points to the back like me. So he has to go and say, hey man, are these your tubs, your drums, can I use them? And I said, what am I going to say? No, I said, sure. So time went on, everybody was playing together, and everybody was smiling like, yeah, okay, we've got our drummer now. I'm sinking slowly. I come all that way, and I'm not even going to get a chance to play. So Elvis called and said, okay guys, that's it. So everybody started putting their instruments away. They're all smiling and nodding like, yeah, it's finally got a drummer. And Larry goes over to Colonel Parker's table and he says, the guy that you just brought in from Texas, you just bought a ticket for? So he hit him right where he lived, in the purse strings, And Colonel got up, went over to Elvis, and there again they pointed back, and I heard Elvis say to everybody, hey guys, we got one more guy to listen to. So I went up and introduced myself, and even though I'd met him in the 50s, this is another story, but it was like an instant rapport of good communication, watching each other right away. And as it turned out, I think that was one of the reasons he hired me was that I was constantly watching him. And fortunately, I did get the job, and things have worked out pretty good.
It's very good for us because we are the other story and ask each of you, when was the first time you actually met Elvis? Not because of auditions or putting the band together. When was really the first time you saw him? In person, yeah, when the first time?
Well, I saw him many times in person, like doing shows, but I never got to meet him until 1969 when I put the band together. So that was actually the first time I met him in real life. So, but I was working with a guy in my hometown, Shreveport, Louisiana, and Elvis played there in 1954, 1956. And I played with a guy named Bob Lumen. But the manager and the host of the show for Bob Lumen wouldn't allow the same type of music on the same night. So when Elvis would come and perform at the Louisiana Hayride, we would go on tour. And when Elvis would go on tour, we would come back and perform at the Hayride. But he didn't want two groups playing the same type of music. And Elvis's drummer, DJ Fontana, is from my hometown, Shreveport. And I played there when I was 14 years old with behind George Jones, all the great entertainers, Johnny Horton, and all the country acts. And I played in a set band. Then when I went to work with Bob Lumen, we continued playing there. And I went to California. That's when I met Ricky Nelson 1956, actually, and joined him in 1957, Rich Band.
When was your first time? I'll have to go back to the story you mentioned.
Well, we have to rewind and go back to the 50s. I had just started playing drums, and I was fortunate enough to play in a very good Western swing band, they called it, in Texas. And we were the staff band on Saturday night one summer. And there was a live radio broadcast to kind of be in connection and competition with the Louisiana Hayride and the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville. This was called the Northside Jamboree out of the stockyards in Fort Worth, Texas. And so I had heard that he was coming, this new guy named Elvis Presley was coming to the show the following weekend. So I decided, I made a stupid move. I decided to take my girlfriend with me. And needless to say, there was a little bit of resentment there right away because she went gaga over it, you know. And so he came up to the. He wasn't too friendly or anything, but he just made get ready. And he came up, and I guess he was, knowing him now, I know he was scared to death, you know, but very nervous. But he didn't have DJ. This was before DJ, and he was the rhythm on a rhythm guitar, and he and Bill Black and Scotty, and he just completely thrashed his guitar, broke half of the strings on it, put big marks all over it, and he just set it down and reached and grabbed our rhythm guitar player's beautiful round hole, old traditional, beautiful, expensive Martin guitar, and in no time he had totally scratched it out, and he never even said sorry or I'll get you another one or anything like that. You know, he was just a raw kid, you know. And so I didn't have to have an opinion of him from that. Now I think about my part about my girlfriend, you know. so I got to tell him about that later years.
Glenn, the first time you saw him?
Actually, I never met him until I auditioned for him that time at MGM. But I did see him play. He played in my hometown of Lubbock, Texas. He played there 3 times. And I saw him 2 of the times that he was there. And I enjoyed it very much. But I never met him till I auditioned.
Okay. Jerry, was it the football game?
It was the football game.
Okay.
1954. I'm really old, guys. There was a radio show that a lot of the young kids I listened to from the time I was 10 years old. I was 12 now, called Red Hot and Blue with Dewey Phillips. And Dewey Phillips would play rhythm and blues songs, which on a white radio station, which was real unusual back in the 50s, 1954, 52. And it was something exciting and new, and I'm listening the night he played for the first time an Elvis record, and he said, "A boy from Humes High." Well, I could see Humes High from my grade school, literally, and all my cousins went to Humes High. And then he played it again, and then he got Elvis down to the station. And I never will forget, I was a huge James Dean fan. And Elvis was kind of stuttering. He used to stutter a lot. And I used to try to stutter because I thought it was cool after Elvis. He would laugh if he heard me say that. But anyway, so at the end of the night, I'm 12 years old. At the time, a good little Catholic boy. And I say a little prayer. You know, God, the neighborhood isn't that big. I'd like to meet that Elvis guy. Knowing never was going to happen. The next day I get up, because we lived in the same neighborhood in North Memphis, and I mosey over to Dave Wells Community Center is a place where you pitch horseshoes and maybe get a football game or a basketball game, and I was pitching horseshoes. Now, this is how unpopular Elvis was, because still nobody knew it. They'd only played the record the night before. He couldn't get 6 people his own age. He was 19, I was 12. So Red West says, he knew my older brother, and he said, "Jerry, you want to play with us?" I'm thinking, man, I'm going to play football with Red West. You know, he was a big high school football player, and I said, yeah. So we had 3 on each side. I get into the huddle, and the quarterback, I realized, was the boy from Humes High. So this coming summer will be 60 years ago that I met Elvis Presley, and changed my life, and it's nice to still be here with the family and everybody.
Another question?
Yeah.
We have another one here from Jan Eric from Spain, and he's asking, during the 70s, when you worked with Elvis, some of his 45s, his singles, such as Burning Love and The Wonder of You, did very well on the bestseller list and in the charts, whereas other titles, such as I'm Leaving, didn't do nearly as well chart-wise. So the question is, did Elvis make much of a comment to you on the matter of chart successes and chart misses? And did it seem to matter to him whether he had a hit record or not?
So, who wants to give an answer to this question? Glendy? Did he ever talk to you about chart positions?
Well, that's kind of a tough question. I don't know. I don't think he thought about it very much. I think he enjoyed recording, and he always did his very best. But I think once he had it recorded, it was like out of his hands, and I think he never gave it another thought. I think.
Was it a good answer to us?
Yeah, if Jan Eric likes it, yes. But no problem, we have plenty of other questions.
Right.
I have a comment about that question. He did come to me one time while we were recording at Graceland and had me come up to his room, and he played me a recording that he was of his own, and then he played me a recording of another artist, and he says, "Why don't my records sound like this? I want them to sound as good as this. Why don't my records sound as good?" So he was concerned, because I think that reflects in sales. And one of the reasons the songs you mentioned did so well, because they sounded good. They were recorded well. They were recorded in a studio like RCA. They were not at Graceland. And that was more of a comfort thing for him. If it happened to sound good, great. But it wasn't really known as a great sounding room to record in. The green room the jungle room rather, at Graceland. So anyway, I think he was concerned. But on the other hand, we were there to make him comfortable and happy.
But wasn't it in his hands to change the situation, to go to studios and record there?
Well, that's debatable, whether it was in his hands or not. There's a point to where, when you get to that level and who he was, people had a way of manipulating him.
As to Glenn and Ronnie, and the question, Burning Love, came up. I think, as Glenn said, Elvis would record how he was feeling, and he would pick songs. And the night that he did Burning Love, he did not want to do Burning Love. It was the same night he was doing Separate Ways and You Were Always on My Mind, and his producer, Felton Jarvis, he knew he had a hit record if Elvis would record it. And Elvis just didn't want to do it. Ended the session, and Felton came over to Joe and I and said, "Man, it's too bad he didn't record this." So we go over to Elvis and say, hey man, you want to try that Burning Love again? He goes, oh, okay. And he comes out there and he does it. He never really, I don't think, understood the lyrics, you know? But I will say this, when it came a hit, he loved it. So hits did make a difference to him, I think, to any artist, but not when he's picking songs to record.
And because he chose all the ballads, was it because of Priscilla or was it because of love situation at that moment? And did any of you talk to him and said, not that many ballads, maybe choose another rock song?
Well,
and he once complained that there are not enough rock songs out there to record. What about that?
Well, you know, we had to be very careful about suggesting songs to Elvis. I think Ronnie kind of hit on it. And it was very unusual. It was one of the very few times that I suggested something to him. We could lose our job over that. But it was a difficult time. A lot of us were going, and his group were going through divorces. And he was he was in a very sad mood, and he wasn't in a mood to do a rock and roll song. So, thank God that we kept on, and he had a hit that he needed at that time. And the sad songs he was doing, like Separate Ways, were great songs and did quite well.
Thomas?
Yes, we have another question from Fred from Holland. This one goes to Jerry. He is asking, after filming Viva Las Vegas in 1963, how did Elvis react to the assassination of JFK?
You know, to be honest, I wasn't with Elvis when he did Viva Las Vegas. So I don't, maybe one of you guys might know. I really don't know.
Okay.
Not a problem.
It's not the right time, yeah.
Sure, sorry. We have another one here. This also goes to Jerry. Jerry, did you find anything in the Colonel's management tricks or style that you could use successfully in your own management career? This comes from Marion from France.
I found a lot, maybe through osmosis, that I could use. I found a lot that I couldn't use or didn't want to. And, you know, the Colonel's a very interesting story, and he wasn't, you know, he's an easy-to-go-to bad guy because he had that image. And I think there was a period of time, to be quite honest, I think these guys would agree, that I think Elvis outgrew the Colonel creatively. And I think that I wrote a lot about that in my book, because I feel that creative disappointment is how I lost my friend at an early age. The Colonel did a lot of good stuff too, especially in the early days, and I just think Elvis outgrew him.
Let's stay a little bit with the Colonel. There were a lot of discussions about Elvis. He tried all the time to make tours in Europe, in Australia, and everywhere. Many people say it didn't happen because the Colonel was against it. Did you ever talk to him about going on tour outside the U.S.? Ronnie?
Yes. I personally talked to him on 2 occasions about going to Japan, because I had friends there and had brought them to meet him backstage and present him with these lovely, they're very traditional in their giving of honored guests and so forth, and dignitaries. Movie stars came back, and he was very impressed with them and told me personally that he really wanted to go to Japan. He said, in fact, I'd like to tour everywhere. And as far as why he was not allowed, we've talked about that many times. We don't know if it's because one rumor, it's only a rumor, that he was an illegal alien, never had a green card for the States. I find that difficult to believe, that he couldn't have solve that problem. But I think he also might have worked a little bit on Elvis's paranoia when it came to defending his privacy and safety with weapons and security, overall security. So, I don't know, what do you think, Jerry?
No, I think Ronnie's right on. Elvis was passionate about going overseas. He talked to all of us about it at one time or another. Again, being the young guy in the group at the time, I was up all night with him in San Antonio. We're staying at that Hilton. And Elvis was passionate about coming to England and Europe and Japan. So I had breakfast with the Colonel the next day, and I said, Colonel, I'm telling you, he's serious. He wants to go overseas, and he said he's going. He wants to perform for his fans. Well, he had a promoter named Tom Hewlett that we all worked with, and I used to hang out with Tom after the shows and talk to him about Led Zeppelin and everybody. And he said, Tom Hewlett, why don't you talk to Tom Hewlett? So that night, Tom and I are having a drink, and I go, so Tom, because he was doing Sinatra, Zeppelin, everybody, said, couldn't you start with Elvis like in England and set up the security? And Tom said, yeah, I could do that. Go to lunch with Colonel the next day. We're walking down the hall at the Hilton Hotel in San Antonio. And man, I was thrilled. And I said, hey, Colonel, I talked to Tom last night, and he said we could set up that tour in England. And the Colonel took the cane and threw it down the hall and said, then damn it, you Hamlin. I made no more suggestions for years.
Thomas?
We have another question here, which is really a specific question. This one goes to James. In the biography, Andreas from Berlin is asking the question. In the biography of Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, there is a chapter where he writes that you, James, are always telling him you're too young for that when it comes to playing some special riffs on guitar. Is that true?
In the book of Keith Richards, there is a chapter where you are mentioned, and he said, what did James say?
That Keith is too young to play some special riffs.
Did you say that to Keith Richards? We have to verify that now.
Too young. I'm never too young. Working with Elvis loved guitar, and the only problem you had with him on stage, if you played something different on a certain song, it threw him off. Because he would expect to hear a certain guitar riff or lick on a certain song. And if I didn't play that, then he would turn around and give me that look, and then I knew what to do.
Yeah, but we're not talking about Elvis, we're talking about Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones.
Keith Richards.
Did you ever tell him you're too young to play guitar?
Oh, well, Keith was my friend. When we met on Shindig, we became friends, and Keith always said, well, I didn't buy Ricky Nelson records, I bought James Burton records because he loved the guitar, and we've been friends ever since 1964. And he inducted me into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2001, and we're good friends.
Maybe we should have some more fast questions.
Yes, sure.
Time is running.
All right. Here's one question from Marie de Paris. And she said she has heard that the production Elvis the Concert does not include the original TCB band in the future. Is that true, and why?
Who wants to give an answer to this? James?
Actually, we heard about this, but I think they tried this once in Memphis with the big screen show with the smaller group playing behind the curtain. So that's really all I know. I didn't go see the show, so I really don't know. Any comment, Ronnie?
Yeah, I'll be as kind as I can about that, because the show is a labor of love for all of us for over 10 years. And, well, yeah, but it was quite a production to put together, very difficult to do. And because of our producer, Stig Egren, it was possible. The people at Graceland had no idea how to do it. They had tried to do it years previous with the Memphis Symphony, and it was a real amateurish production. And Stig took it and knew how to do, and knew what to do, knew how to get us together in agreement, and we really formed a working plan. And as far as why it's being done now, this is only my opinion. I really don't know, because I'm not involved in any of the meetings, planning or otherwise. All I know is the result as it comes to us, and then what I've talked to Stig about. The owners that bought the most recent, the acquisition of EPE and Graceland and all that, are looking ways to make money. You know, they're investors, and they're taking the show, condensing it to 1 hour as opposed to 2 plus something hours, hiring a group of unknown musicians, and they'll be behind a scrim, so you'll never see them. And it's really meant to attract money and to tour quickly and cheapened, much more economical to produce and to keep it on the road. So that's all I know.
Ken?
I know very little about it, but I have a feeling that it's a poor imitation of our show. I think you need to read your back of your ticket carefully and see if it comes with a guarantee.
I would just like to add, these guys were not only on the show, they helped make the show, and it makes sense history-wise, but this is not a factory job, it's music, and these guys were the live, along with the suites and the singers and jokers, and the TCB band. That was the magic, and that was the heart behind that show, and it's not the same to me without you guys.
Because we are very proud of that show, and we've enjoyed doing it all these years, and we'll be sorry to ever see it end. But anyway, we can only wish them success with that other. Thank you. Thank you. You have only to call.
May I add something personally? I would say there's only one TCB band in the world.
I want to make sure that we have tomorrow the only TCB band in the world right on stage here. First show starts at 7, second show at 9. So be sure tomorrow, and we want to keep it like this also for the future. Just want to make that clear. Last one, because we are really, you want to say something, James?
Yeah, I want to say, with this show coming up next year, I just want to say that what will they do when Elvis says, "Play it, James"? And on drums, Ronnie Tuck. Wendy Harden on keyboard.
So that's fast round. Unfortunately, the time is over. I just want to ask you all guys here, what are the future plans? Better way. Don't talk about this anymore. What are you planning in the near future, James?
Well, I have a foundation, and I'm really happy working with the kids in school, giving them guitars and keeping our music alive, and with the kids. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm doing a lot of recording. I have my own recording studio now, and the kids can come and record and see how they, keep up the support that they all love music, and I just want to keep that happening. I'm working on my show for next year, which will be August 22nd, and I want to invite everyone to come and see a great show, a lot of great entertainers, and a lot of fun. And I just want to thank everybody for all your love and support, and truly an honor and a blessing from God, and I love all you guys. Thank you.
Ronnie, what's coming up next?
Well, we have a January tour of Europe with Dennis Jail. And the TCB band. And that's in January. After that, it's unannounced as to what will be happening after the January tour. So we're seeing what the future holds. Yeah.
Then you also coming in January too.
What's that?
January tour, you are in, of course.
Oh, yes, indeed. I hope they don't do it without me. I've brought my expensive luggage to, I'm ready to pack. My plan for the future is to maybe try to work a little bit less and spend more time walking my little doggy at home. And I'm going to make it a point to try to have ice cream every day for the rest of my life.
Well, I'm planning on doing another cruise with these guys next year, and Dennis John. And a couple of things that Priscilla has mentioned. I'm really excited about working on a feature film called The Last Train to Memphis. I've been 18 years in development on this, and so I think we're going to start filming that the spring of next year. And then there's a project that I can't say too much about because we don't have a deal yet, but it's really going to involve these guys on film about Elvis's music. So there's some real exciting things for the future that you guys are going to love.
Everybody joining us this afternoon. Don't forget tomorrow, first concert 7 p.m., second concert 9 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody.